Lately, needless to say, Call of Duty has been in a little bit of hot water. Whether you are looking at their servers or the hacker problem, one thing has remained consistent year after year after year, and that is the increase of microtransaction. Gone are the days of going to your local game store, buying Call of Duty, maybe having to get 1 or 2 DLCs, and that was really that. Now, if you get Call of Duty, you also have to pay for this, that, maybe a little bit of this. And now we also have paid for events which have been added as well. But on top of all of this, you still have to pay for the base price of the game. So I was wondering how exactly we got to this. So what I wanted to do is put together a video that has every single Call of Duty game and all of the microtransactions that we've ever had, discussing how we started at just buying Call of Duty and got to where we are today. And to do that, we got to go back in time, all the way back to Call of Duty 4, the first of the Modern Warfare games. So Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare was released on November 5th, 2007, and really didn't have any microtransactions except for one thing, the Variety Map Pack. This was added in later in the year 2008 and came in at the steep price point of $15 US. Just for this video, we're going to look at everything at the USD. Now keep in mind, this isn't Modern Warfare Remastered, we will come back to that one, but just keep that $15 number in mind. Now for $15, this would include 4 different maps, and that was pretty much it. Now this is something that we would see continue in the next Call of Duty game, Call of Duty World at War. So Call of Duty World at War continued kind of the same model of microtransactions as Call of Duty 4, which was map packs. World at War had 3 different map packs, each of which came in around 800 Microsoft points, or about $10 US, making it so that if you wanted to buy all 3 map pack, your post-launch cost would come in at a total of around $30 US. Now, when it came to these map packs, each included 3 multiplayer maps, as well as a brand new zombies experience and a zombies map at that. And this is something that would continue moving forward throughout the next couple of games, with some little changes. Starting with Modern Warfare 2. So Modern Warfare 2 only had 2 map packs, each of which were $15, so just like Call of Duty World at War, coming in with a price tag of around $30 US. There was 2 map packs, the Stimulus package as well as the Resurgence package, each of which had 3 brand new maps to Modern Warfare 2, as well as 2 maps that were kind of remake maps from basically Call of Duty 4. Now, the last version of this DLC / microtransaction model would be in Call of Duty Black Ops 1. Black Ops 1 was the last time we would see map packs done in this exact way. First off, we had First Strike, Escalation, and Annihilation map packs. Those are the first 3, each of which had multiplayer maps and zombies map. But later there would be a 4th map pack implemented, which was called Resurrection. In other words, these were just zombies maps. Now, each of these map packs came in at $15 with a total price tag after launch of $45 USD. So I would say this was the golden era of DLC and microtransaction, but there was a problem with it. Once the DLC would actually come out, all of the audience for the game would be separated, because some people wouldn't buy it, and the people who didn't buy it couldn't really play with the people who did buy it, and the people who did buy it were stuck against the people who did buy it, who were generally speaking better players, so people ended up deleting it or refunding it, and it was a big problem for the game. And this is when Call of Duty started, but didn't peak, but started to get a little bit sketchy with Modern Warfare 3. Now, Modern Warfare 3 once again had map packs, but they also wanted to increase the value of buying them with a whole other new thing called Call of Duty Elite.
And Call of Duty Elite is about kicking even more ass! Welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. You don't get better by studying kill cams between respawns. You get better by studying heat maps, weapon demos. That's Elite.
So essentially they released this new subscription model where you could go onto the website, see heat maps from the various different maps in game, you could see your weapon stats with various weapons, what's good on them, what attachments work for you, but that wasn't it. It was also a new way of introducing a subscription for their DLC model.
Getting all the new maps first on your console? That's elite! Spec Ops, new game modes, and yes, new maps. Every frag flipping month for the next 9 months. Whoa! That makes me want to celebrate.
So the term that we know this as now is a season pass for a Call of Duty game. We'll come back to that one in a minute, but you got all of the maps for the game, all of the DLC in the earliest possible situation. But this became really confusing because it wasn't just about this, it was also about what console you were playing on as well.
Get new maps and more first on Xbox Live.
So this is something that's been around for a while, but now all of a sudden you had this subscription model, you had console early access, which was a console exclusivity, as well as if you didn't buy Call of Duty Elite, you would get the maps at a different time as well. It was incredibly confusing, but this is what the pricing model came down to.
Of course, you can wait and get the DLC packs when they drop later. Pay the $15 4 times a year, like my grandmother buying a couch on layaway. Or you can join Elite for $50.
So you can already see that number start to rise how much your yearly content would cost every single year. $50 with the membership or Call of Duty Elite, or $60 if you were to buy each individual pass. Needless to say, people did not like having to pay for a subscription to get their yearly access to DLC. Even though this was essentially just a marketing problem, they actually just rebranded it moving forward with the next game, Black Ops 2. So believe it or not, Black Ops 2 actually introduced the exact same kind of subscription model where you'd get all of the DLC packs for the entire year for one set price of $50. However, they just rebranded this to the Call of Duty Black Ops 2 Season Pass, and people were no longer concerned about the subscription model, even though it was essentially the exact same thing. And this was the year where actual microtransactions actually came into the game. There are, I believe, a total of 25 different personalization packs, which all included different types of camos for all of your weapons, some of which included a bunch of reticles, and they also had 2 other types of microtransactions, one of which was just essentially calling cards with a bunch of countries' flags in them, and the other of which was buying extra Creator class slots. This was by far the most controversial one out of all of them. However, as a total price tag, if you were to buy everything, it came in around a total of $60 for this, and then another $50 for the DLC pack, upping the total cost if you wanted to buy everything to about $110 USD. The other thing that Black Ops 2 did is they introduced the very first DLC weapon. Now, this was available with one of the map packs. You didn't have to buy it separately, and it wasn't a part of any other bundle. But again, this was just the beginning. This would go much, much further. So Call of Duty Ghosts did a very similar thing to Black Ops 2, where they had 4 different DLCs where you could buy a season pass for 50 USD. But then they also had a whole microtransaction store. Now, when it comes to this store, they did kind of more of the same of what we saw with Black Ops 2, where they had various different weapon skins or camos that you could buy. But some other things that they had included voiceover packs, which would change the audio that you hear in game, as well as for the first time ever, they had customizable soldiers. Just the way that it worked in Call of Duty Ghost, you could actually change how your soldier actually looked. So they also had microtransactions to change those soldiers as well. So if you bought everything, season pass, all of the announcer packs, all of the customization, personalization packs, it would come in at around a total of 180 USD. Once again, you can see that number going up, but this is where things skyrocketed. So first off, Advanced Warfare had everything that we've had before. So the Season Pass once again returned with 4 different DLCs, but on top of that, once again, just like we had in Call of Duty Ghost, we had those personalization packs that came in as well. So we had all of this, which would come in to around 142 USD if you were just buying all of this. However, they also introduced the slot machine. So Call of Duty introduced supply drops, which was essentially a way to earn various different items in-game. Every game or two, you would receive one of these supply drops, and inside you could find weapon variants which actually had different stats or gear for your character to make you look completely different than anyone else. And this was completely fine until you could pay for them. And with that, they stopped listening to their advice from Call of Duty Elite.
Clowns are never to be trusted. Call of Duty is about kicking ass.
So yes, they started to charge for these, adding in more and more content to them to the point where you could basically unlimitedly buy all of these supply drops and still not receive nearly everything that you wanted. Not to mention there were stat changed weapons, there was various different skins, things along those lines. So yeah, that price went from $142 to essentially unlimited when Call of Duty figured out how they could use this slot machine to essentially print money. Now this next section I am going to call the dark ages of microtransactions. No, I don't think all of these games are bad whatsoever. However, the microtransaction systems definitely are, because not only do we still have things like the season pass or buying an ultimate edition of the game that includes the season pass, you have personalization packs, voice packs, everything in between, so everything that we just talked about, but each of these games also has supply drops. These continued for a very long period of time, and for example in Black Ops 3 this was the only way you could actually get DLC weapons, which yes, you could earn crypto keys which would give you more and more supply drops, but at the same time, if you actually wanted to earn these things, you could also buy them with something new in this game called Call of Duty points. These were not cheap whatsoever, and they absolutely did not guarantee that you were going to get those DLC weapons because they were absolutely completely full of filler, so sometimes people would spend thousands of dollars and still not get these. Again, they found a way to print money. At this point, there's no point in talking about how much all of this DLC and all of the microtransaction would cost, because the answer really is unlimited amounts of money. And this would continue into the next game with just a few changes here or there. So once again, same sort of thing with all of the same sort of voice packs and DLC and season passes, but this time we didn't have the black market, but rather we had the quartermaster. Now this time, the way that this one would function was with essentially variants. All of the guns in the game would have a bunch of different types of variants, which you could get through getting keys, or you could just buy supply drops with Call of Duty points, just like the previous games. Now each of the weapons would have different variants that would do different things, and even later on in the game, they added in score streak variants as well, which again, would kind of make this a little bit pay to win. There was other ways to earn them, but again, unlimited amounts of money, because unlimited amounts of supply drops because of slot machines.
Let's do this.
So yes, of course we've got to talk about Modern Warfare Remastered, because this one also had the slot machines in it as well. But first of all, you could buy the map pack, the variety map pack that we did talk about earlier, but on top of this, there was still supply drops. Now, out of all of the supply drop versions that you see in any of the games, I truly believe that this was the best one, because there was also in-game currency which you could use to go through and unlock a specific class of items, which would give you in turn a specific item that you were going for. So it wasn't all based off of luck, even though you still needed some RNG. On top of that, there were different types of supply drops that would give you different types of items, which would in turn help you target other items. Still, it was gambling, it was supply drops, it was everything that we expected from before, but they did hone this one in a little bit, and it was probably the best version that we ever saw, but not the last version. So once again, with Call of Duty World War II, we had all of the DLC, the Season Pass, Call of Duty points were still there, and yes, once again, supply drops returned. Now this time, you could call them in the kind of headquarters area where everyone could actually watch you call them in, or you could just do it for yourself. But once again, the Quartermaster returned with various different types of supply drops. Just like how we saw within Modern Warfare Remastered, there was collections, you were able to go for specific items. In fact, these two games had very similar methods to supply drops actually being done. As you can see here, the various different events that they had throughout the year, you could go for very distinct items with the various different types of currency you had throughout the game. So where things seemingly got a little bit better with supply drops, Treyarch would come in and try to put an end to that. I truly believe that Black Ops 4 was the most egregious game when it came to microtransactions. There was even a movement at the time called Black Market Blackout to get people to stop buying COD points and stop buying the things in game. We're actually seeing a fairly similar thing with our current game, but we'll get to that later on. Now, as far as why I say this, once again, buying your DLC was still a thing. The seasons you had to pay for each individual time or buy the season pass. Now on top of that, there were individual items you could buy within the store, kind of like we have with bundles now, but for individual skins or things along those lines. On top of that, we had another thing called contraband, which essentially worked as if it was a battle pass, but once you hit a top level of 50, for example, you would then get reserves, which we will get to in a second. But at the same time, underneath, you could essentially buy premium contraband, which would cost like 700 to 1,000 COD points, which would give you extra tiers of your battle pass that were premium that you could buy. Does that sound familiar? Again, we'll come back to that one in a minute. But on top of that, supply drops were rebranded because supply drops were getting a bad name to reserves, which essentially acted the exact same way as supply drops were before. They were coming at you from all angles in this game. There was every way of monetization, again, costing an unlimited amount of money. But with the fight the Call of Duty community gave to this game and its microtransactions, a change was made moving forward. Honestly, out of any Call of Duty game that I think we've ever seen, Modern Warfare 2019 probably has the best microtransaction model. There was no more DLC that would divide the community where some people would have it downloaded and others wouldn't. They would introduce seasons and supply drops would actually be removed. Now that doesn't mean that microtransactions became cheaper, because that is simply not the case. Every single season we were introduced to a new battle pass that would be 100 tiers that you could unlock that would cost either 1,000 COD points or just over 2,000 COD points, depending on whether you bought the extra tiers or not. On top of that, there would be new bundles that would be added in that would cost a variety of amounts based off of how many items would be inside. But unlike supply drops, you could choose exactly what you wanted. If you wanted the operator skin for a specific character, you could do that. And there wasn't items that were stuck behind slot machines whatsoever. Now, this may have been done because the community was fighting back, or because certain countries were actually banning loot boxes or supply drops from their games in their country. If they were inside there, the game couldn't be sold there. For one of those two reasons, or both, supply drops were removed and we now had a brand new microtransaction model. Now, Black Ops Cold War essentially had the exact same model that Modern Warfare 2019 did. So, in other words, both of these games, I really liked the system that they used. And in fact, I did some math to try to figure out exactly how much the microtransactions would have cost for both games if you would have bought everything. So if you bought the base version of the battle passes every season for both games, it would come out to $120 or $60 per game. Now, between the two games, there is about 380 total bundles, and on average, they cost about $12 each. Which means, per about both games, you would be looking at around $2,280. But if you combine that with the Battle Pass per game, you were looking at $2,340 total to buy everything, which, let's be honest, is still a lot of money, but at least it's not an unlimited amount of money. Now then we have Call of Duty Vanguard, and more or less Vanguard was the same as Cold War and Modern Warfare. However, the main difference is bundles started to get more expensive. Most of the bundles here cost $2,400, where in Modern Warfare 2019, you would more so have some bundles that would cost around $1,400 all the way up to $2,000. There were a few that were $2,400, but here, almost all of them are $2,400, and you'll even come across some that actually cost real-world money and aren't just COD points. Now, I just want to keep in mind here that some of these bundles that you're seeing here, the $30 ones, are the same price as buying 8 multiplayer maps back in the day, or 6 multiplayer maps and 2 zombies maps. Those are the prices that we're looking at here. Keep in mind, as we're going to see here, they're going to continue to test how high these prices can actually get. So things started as per usual for Modern Warfare 2. They were actually doing pretty decent with the normal battle pass and just slightly raising the price of the bundles in-game. However, come Season 3, they introduced something new. Black Cell, a new addition into the Modern Warfare 2 Battle Pass. Coming in at Season 3, it was never really explained why they did this, other than the fact that I think they just wanted more people to buy a more expensive Battle Pass, adding in more items, more skins, more value, but at the same time, it costing about $30 as opposed to 10 if you buy the minimalistic battle pass that came out originally. Now, this wasn't much more expensive than buying the tier skips for the battle pass as well, but it was the beginning of them trying to test out new ways of adding in microtransactions. Then there was this.
Playtime is over when Nikki drops in.
I truly believe that this is when we started to see a huge higher influx in the amount of crossover content within microtransactions in Call of Duty. Nicki Minaj, Snoop Dogg, 21 Savage, or whether it be something new like we're going to talk about in a minute, like Squid Games. These become more and more popular with events coming into the game, and of course, because of this, these bundles also got more and more expensive. So with Black Ops 6, it's more or less the same thing. Once again, we have the Battle Pass, which once again does have Black Cell. Now, some of the things that are different in this game, however, is the store. First off, you can see bundles going all the way up to 3,000 COD points, and on top of that, some of these bundles have new weapons in them before they're available anywhere else. Sometimes only hours, but still a thing nonetheless to mention. But on top of that, what is brand new to the game is we now have premium events. There's a premium track that, honestly, is extremely similar to what we saw back in Black Ops 4. So here is what I will say. After looking through all of the microtransactions, one thing that I have noticed is that each iteration of Call of Duty tries to push the boundaries higher and higher to what the maximum amount of money they can earn in a game. And yes, it's a business. That makes a lot of sense. But it hits a point where the game no longer becomes consumer friendly. It is purely focused on buying these things in game. And I truly believe Call of Duty is getting closer and closer to that. And yes, it's no unlimited money market like Call of Duty Black Ops 4, where it was just supply drop after supply drop and trying to roll the dice to see what you could actually get. This event lasts 20 days long, and to get every single bundle that they're promoting would end up costing you about $87 US. I don't think people are frustrated that the microtransactions are that much, but just seemingly the focus of the game isn't going into the gameplay or what people are playing. It is simply going into the bundles to get more people to spend money, not enjoy the game more. But what I will say is Call of Duty will continue to try to push the boundaries on microtransactions, getting us to spend more and more money. And the only way to get them to stop and put a border on what we'll actually spend our money on is to make a decision. What will you actually spend your money on?
We are reaching for the stars, but we're making